Hi, welcome to episode 462 of the Corner of Knit and Tea. My name is Laura. I'm also known as Fluffy Kira on Instagram, Twitter, and Blue Sky. I blog over at thecornerofknitandtea.com, and that's where this episode and every episode show notes will be. And I have an Etsy shop called The Corner of Knit and Tea, where I sell my handspun yarn and knitting patterns. Hi, how are you? It is Monday, February 19th, which means it is President's Day here in the United States. That is a banking and federal holiday, although quite a few businesses do not take the day off. So actually I am working today, but I'm on my lunch hour right now, and I wanted to come and chat with you a little bit. So I hope that you are doing well. I had a positively crafty weekend, and it was wonderful, and I have lots of things to show you, although not that much new, so could be a little bit boring for you, but I made great strides and I'm really happy with it. And so it means that there will be new projects soon, or old projects that I put aside, because I realized I have quite a few whips that I've sort of put aside in favor of other things. So I hope that you're doing well. The weather here, I talk about it a lot because it's all kinds of different. So last week it was warm in the 50s, and then on Friday we had snow and it was bitterly cold on Saturday, and then today it's back up into the 50s. So it's kind of whatever's going on. The only other exciting, and I use the phrase loosely, exciting thing happening here this week is my husband and I have been waiting to get the foundation fixed on our house, because our house, one corner of it is sinking slightly. And we contracted to do the work. Well, so we met with the contractor and talked about it back in October, November timeframe, and he said he wanted to do it in January. And then the January weather was so bitter cold that he couldn't come out and do it. And permitting took a little longer and whatever, but I think, fingers crossed, he's going to start this week. And I don't think it's going to take more than a few days to a week. So we have that coming up, which is one of those kind of expensive and not very fun home repairs. Like it's not like when you redo your kitchen and you get a brand new kitchen. It will make the house, what do I want to say? It will better the value of the house to have this thing fixed. And it will make a slight difference because we do have some cracks in the walls that will then have to get patched over and fixed. But like in general, not much is really happening. They're literally digging out one corner of the house and putting more things underneath to support it up. And then, yeah. So that's the excitement here. I hope that you're doing well and that you are crafty and that the weather is not too terrible wherever you are. So let's start with this week's tea. This week I am drinking Glow Cloud, which was a Welcome to Night Vale reference, and I bought this tea ages and ages ago, and I actually opened the box today and was like, I wonder if it's still good. And the box is pretty airtight, so it seems to be good. Tea can kind of last forever as long as it doesn't, as long as you store it in a cool, dry place. It does, the flavor and potency diminishes over the years, as do spices and whatnot, but there's nothing that you're going to hurt yourself doing. And it still smells lovely. So it is a blend of mandarin green, white peach, pu'er teas with cranberry, orange peels, and hibiscus. So it is kind of a fandom tea blend from Adagio, and I was really into Welcome to Night Vale when it first came out, and I've also seen them live. It's a podcast. And I don't know if it's still going. I'm not sure that it is, but it was really fun. It was kind of a little science fiction-y and a little odd and off-kilter. Anyway, and I'm drinking it in a Jenny the Potter mug, and I was trying to remember. I don't think this is a Marilyn Sheemadwool. I think this is just one of the lucky times I managed to hit one of her shop updates, because Marilyn Sheepadwool usually has something to do with blue crabs from Maryland, and I know that I did not get one of her mugs when I went to Rhinebeck. So yeah, so it's Jenny the Potter, and it's a sheep and yarny mug, and I'm drinking my Welcome to Night Vale Glow Cloud tea. And it still tastes delicious. So I have two knitting projects to share with you, one little bit of spinning and then a little bit of sewing. And so nothing super exciting or new today, other than I'll show you the sewing, which is kind of fun. So I am almost done with my mom's sweater. This sweater is called Maven. It's by Maven Crafted, and there is a link in the show notes to her bag fell over. There is a link in the show notes to her website where you can purchase the pattern. It is a top-down yoke-shaped tee. And so there's shaping, and it's a very simple tee. It's a stockinette tee with some ridges every so many rows, and then like I said, there's simple yoke shaping. There's not a lot to the sleeves. Basically, you're just increasing to the yoke, and then you put those aside, and you do a really simple treatment to finish them. And so I am working on this for my mom's birthday, which is the first couple days of March, and I am almost done. So I'm making really good time. The yarn that I am using is a gradient set, and it is lovely, and I'm hoping that I don't see the tag in here. What did I do with it? I might have put it in my journal because I knew I wanted to save it. So the yarn that I am using is Marionated Yarns, and it is gradient. So this is her little Marionated Yarns, and it is a gradient. It's the Princess something. All the notes are on my website. It is her Superwash Merino Cashmere Nylon blend. It is 6 skeins, each is 133 yards, so it's approximately 800 yards of fiber, and it is in colorways from petal pink to kind of a magenta, and I am very close to the end of the top. I'm really excited about this. So I just started adding in the final color, and what I did is I put the ribbing on my sleeves first. So I am knitting the pattern as written with the exception of the sleeves, and I'm adding length. So this is what I am working on. So like you can see, it's petal pink and it goes all the way down to magenta. And what I did is I had worked through the first 2 colors, and then I had held the sleeves on waste yarn. And what I did is I went ahead and picked that up this weekend with my final color. So even though there is like a really bright color change here, this is the color that will be on the ribbing on the hem. So I thought it would be nice. I did choose to do ribbing here. The pattern actually has you do an I-cord, and when I made mine, a year ago now, I decided that I didn't really like the I-cord bind off around the sleeves, and so I decided to go ahead and turn mine into ribbing. So I went ahead and did the same thing for my mom's. I just made it 1x1 ribbing, which matches the neckline and the hem. So that is what we've got there, and I did both sleeves. And the reason that I went ahead and did both sleeves is because it was time to kind of weave in the gradient of the final color, and I was afraid that once I started with the final color on the bottom, that I wouldn't be able to eyeball well where I needed to stop so that I had enough left for the hem on the sweater and then also the hems on these sleeves. So what I did is when I got to the point where it was time for me to add in the final color for the gradient, you can see it like right down here, what I did is I went ahead and finished the sleeve edges first so that I didn't have to reserve any for the end. So now I can just knit until I run out of yarn if that is what I want to do. So that was why I made that change and went ahead and did those. So basically now I just need to finish knitting the body and then I'm done. And then I just have to weave in my ends, wash and block. And so my guess is I'll finish this tonight or tomorrow night. And that's great because I can wash it, block it, I can show it to you next Monday and then immediately drop it in the mail to my mom for her birthday. So that is what I'm doing. The only other modification that I mentioned is I am making the tee longer, and I don't think it's going to be that much longer. I'll probably do 1 or 2 more repeats and then move right on to the ribbing at the hem. Which is fine because that's the yarn I have left. Like I said, I did make this a little bit longer. The top is supposed to be slightly cropped, and my mom is I'm not going to share my mom's age because that would be rude, but my mom is not into cropped tops. So So I just decided to go ahead and make it longer. I think I made mine a little bit longer as well, but I know for sure I'm making my mom's longer because I'm just going until I more or less run out of yarn. I still have some little bits and pieces left over from the colors, so I've got little bits of all the colors left over, but basically at this point I just have this much left, which is another repeat or 2 and then the ribbing around the hem, and that will be it. So honestly, I might even finish this tonight. And like I said, then all I have to do is weave in the ends and then wash it and block it, and it will be ready to go. So this is a simple knit. It's a really nice lightweight tee. As I said, it's just got kind of the ridges for interest, plus I knit mine in a skein of Zen Yarn Gardens, one of their Luxe blanks, so it's a gradient all the way through, so I didn't have to worry about where I was going to transition colors and what I was going to do, but I just knit this and then eyeballed it, and when it looked like I should begin transitioning, I did. In some cases I eyeballed better than others. My guess is I'll probably have about 50 yards left over when I'm done, which is fine. It will probably go into my Christmas blanket or something else. But I think it's really great. It's going to be a fun tee, and I think it will be good for her. She lives in Southern California, near the coast, and so it is, I think she'll be able to wear this through the spring and even through June gloom, because we had lots of June gloom living there right by the coast. The fog rolls in and it just stays pretty cloudy and not too warm. So my guess is she'll get a lot of wear out of this. It can also be kind of year-round since she's living in California. So I should have that to show you finished next time, which is very exciting, which means I can focus on my second project for the month, which is a sweater for me. So I've talked a little bit about Fix It, Finish It, or Frog It February, and I have not done so well on it. I had hoped to get to a few more things this month, but I added in my mom's sweater kind of unexpectedly at the beginning of the month. Unexpected because I woke up one morning and was like, I should knit my mom something for her birthday in a month. So I am working on finishing that, and I actually have a long list of little things that I need to finish. I have a pair of mittens where I knit one mitten and didn't knit the other mitten. I started a hat but didn't finish it. I have those socks that I cast on, and then I have this sweater that I've been talking about for a while. So this is my Fix It, Finish It, or Frog It. I frogged it, and now I'm knitting a different pattern so that I can have it as a sweater. And I made modest progress this week. I say modest because I probably could have knit more, but I didn't. And so what I did this week is I finished the first sleeve. So I am knitting the Ramona cardigan, which is by Elizabeth Smith, and there is a link to her website in the show notes at thecornerofknitandtea.com, and so you can get the pattern. It is a very simple top-down raglan cardigan. It's got some details on the raglan, and it's got some chunky ribbing, and it is a bulky sweater intended to just go with dresses and other things. And I have this yarn that I had used for something else, which is, this is Juniper Moon Bud, which is 100% cotton. It's a little bit of a boucle, and I had turned it into a sweater and didn't ever wear the sweater, so I decided I was going to go ahead and rip it out and reclaim the yarn and do something with it. I don't do that often. I only do that if I really like the yarn or I really have a great idea for what I think it could be next. Otherwise, sometimes I'll just donate the sweater. Anyway, so I am knitting this because I hope this will be a fun spring cardigan. It is bulky weight, but it's also 100% cotton, so my hope is that I will be able to wear it in spring and fall, and maybe even in summer. I know a bulky weight cardigan in the Midwest in summer sounds crazy, but everywhere is air conditioned, and so it's always really, really chilly, and so I might really enjoy this cardigan. So like I said, it's a top-down chunky cardigan. It's it is fairly simple, and I didn't want anything with a lot of stitch texture because since the yarn is textured, the stitch detailing doesn't really stand out. There is a little bit of detailing on the raglan shaping. You can see that it's kind of a garter stitch right here in between the raglan shaping, but even that is not super noticeable. So it is a top down with raglan, and what I did is I knit down to a few inches below where I split for the sleeves, and then I stopped and went ahead and knit the sleeves. And I did this for two reasons. One is that it's really nice to knit the sleeves when I don't have the bulk of the sweater, and since this is a bulky weight sweater, I thought that would be really nice. The second thing is that I had ripped out a sweater that I had made, and it was a bottom up, and so it had fronts and sides or it had front and back, and then it had a collar and it had sleeves. And so when I ripped it out, I had lots and lots of little balls of yarn, and so I kind of wanted to use some of those up and get them out of the way. The other thing is that I don't have quite enough yardage for the entire sweater from the first sweater, so I ended up buying a couple extra skeins just in case I need them, and I'm pretty sure I am going to need them. And I haven't held them against each other yet to see whether they match. This is why you should always buy enough yarn on the first try. But so your dye lots match. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back down to the bottom. And at the time that I started the sleeve, I don't think the new skeins had arrived yet. So my plan was to use up what I could kind of on the sleeves and the upper part of the body. And then on the lower part of the body, I will blend in the new skeins and then blend it into the ribbing and whatnot. So basically I finished one sleeve this weekend. Whoops. That was my waist yarn. I was wondering where that went. I finished my first sleeve this weekend, and then I went ahead and picked up around the sleeve for the second, sleeve. So my hope is maybe I'll get the second sleeve done this week, and then I can go back to the body. I will not finish this for the end of February, but I don't think it'll be too far behind because honestly, this is working up very, very quickly. If I sit for an hour or two, I have several inches because it works up so incredibly fast just because it's really bulky. So my plan is to hopefully use up all the rest of my small bits and bobs and then be able to go back into full skeins and work on the body and the trim. And you can see I totally lied, not intentionally. The sweater just finishes with a 1x1 rib, and so it's not even like super noticeable there, but it's kind of like a thick chunky, I guess you can sort of see it. It's a thick chunky 1x1 rib at the bottom of the cuff, and I did go down a needle size, but it's bulky yarn, so it's just not going to be super fitted. The original cardigan is kind of tailored, and I don't know if mine is going to be or not. I picked the size medium, so I'm knitting it for, I have a 38-inch bust, and I want to say the cardigan is meant to be worn with 4 to 6 inches of ease, and so I will have about 4 inches, I think. And or I haven't been like super careful on my gauge. I don't know if this is going to be a little oversized, and if it is, that is fine with me. I'm not upset about that at all. So that is what I have been working on. One sleeve done, hopefully finish the next sleeve and maybe start back on the body, especially since I'm going to finish my mom's in the next night or so, and then I can focus my full attention on this, and then I might actually pull out my mittens to see what I can do on those this week. And that was the snowberry mittens. And I am knitting that in a worsted weight yarn held with a Surrey alpaca and silk. And really, I probably only need a few nights to crank out that second mitten too. So I would love to finish as much as I possibly could in February. I feel like I haven't had any finishes yet, but that's also because I've been working on 2 sweaters and then chicken stuff. And I didn't do any chicken feathers this week because I had a lot of chickens to work on. So I knit custom pieces for a local artist studio, and they make chicken footstools. I've talked about these before, and I am working on one for myself, but this week I had a ton of yarn to turn into the actual commission pieces, and so I needed to finish those up on deadline, so I did not work on my own chicken. So I really need to get back to that too. Maybe I'll do some of that next weekend. I don't know. I have so many crafts and so little time. So anyway, this is the Ramona cardigan by Elizabeth Smith Knits. I'm hoping to finish it in February. I don't know if that's going to happen, and I'm not going to beat myself up if it's not. My hope is to work through a bunch of my little whips that are here and there, and then go back to working on mittens to donate, and then I am not sure what else. I have a bunch of things I would like to make and do this year, and I'm not sure exactly what's next. My sister also has a birthday at the end of March, and I briefly thought about knitting her the same sweater that I'm knitting my mom, because I actually have another gradient in teal, and I could do that, but I think I'm not going to do that. I think I'm done with this pattern for now, and so I haven't decided if I'm going to make my sister something or not. Stay tuned till next week, because once I finish my mom's sweater, I'll probably turn my attention to what I'm going to do for my sister, and I could end up doing something completely different and not making her anything at all, but she is appreciative, so I don't know. Or I could give her the snowberry mittens that I'm making right now, because her hands are about my size and her favorite color is teal too. That's a thought. Okay, I don't know. Okay, so let's talk really just 2 seconds about fiber. And then I will talk a little bit about sewing, and then I'll get you out of here. So I am still working on the fiber from Melanated Boho Bay, who is Amanda. She dyes lovely fiber. This is a BFL silk blend in lots of lovely spring colors. I finished the first 2 ounces. This is the second 2 ounces. I need to spin this up this week. And my hope is that I will spin it up and then that I will have time to ply. And so I will have another skein for the shop. I have not picked out my next spin yet because I'm really not confident I'll get beyond this spin this week. So that is what I'm working on, and I forgot to bring the bobbin. It's behind me on the wheel, but I don't want to turn my back to you and like twist it off. And yeah, anyway, so this is what I'm working on. Lots of springy colors, you know, pinks, peaches, yellows, golds, and a little bit of green, like a foresty green there. So, and I think that's going to be really nice. And it's BFL silk, so it's like really lustrous and shiny. You can see some of the silk in there. So really, really pretty and well prepared. So let's talk about sewing. So last week I talked to you, the last 2 weeks I've talked to you a little bit about free motion quilting and what I was doing. And so if you want to hear more about that, you can go back to the previous episodes because I don't want to keep repeating myself. I know that makes it boring for those of you who tune in weekly. So I decided to throw caution to the wind and go ahead and start on my Halloween quilt. And so what I needed to do was I needed to create my quilt sandwich, which I did, and then I needed to work on free motion quilting. And so this is the beginnings of my quilt. It's not finished yet, but this is the quilt that I am working on, and you can see that I worked on swirlies and curly cues and meandering, and I've got about a third of the quilt done. So the quilt is made up of these blocks that have kind of, I'm calling them moon shapes, but really it's just a round circular piece that I used a little bit of fusible and went ahead and fused it on, and then appliqued the edges with some stitching, so you can see a little bit of that. Oh, you can actually see a whole bunch of that. And then I also alternated it with Dresden blocks, and what I did is I used a Dresden template, which is basically a pie wedge shaped template, and I used the specific Dresden template for 10-inch squares. And what I actually had were fat quarters, so I cut them into 10-inch squares, and then well, actually technically I didn't. I cut them into 10-inch strips, and then I cut all of my Dresden pieces, and then I just flipped them over and put them back and forth with each other and tried not to match up too many fabrics, too many of the same things. So the fabric collection is called Maywood Studios Spooky Hallow, and it was a fat quarter bundle that came with a whole bunch of blacks and oranges and purples. And so I put together the blocks, and this is a 4x4. So it's 4 blocks by 4 blocks. They came out to about 9 inches, so I should be right around a 36-inch per side. I have overhang here because it is recommended that you work with batting and backing that is larger than your top, because the top can shift during quilting, and if you cut your batting and backing the exact same size as your quilt, sometimes that will shift during quilting, and then you'll end up having to trim your quilt down to a smaller finished size. So the idea is that I can still quilt all of this right here, and you can see a lot of the quilting there, and then I can trim up the edges, trim off this excess, and then I can put the binding on the edges. So the only other thing that I wanted to show you is I kind of have a fairly plain black fabric on here on the back, and it doesn't match the collection. What I did is I just waited, and then at some point they were selling a 3-yard cut of black fabric. It's got like some bubbles on it. I'll show you in just a second. And so I just waited, and that was kind of the perfect amount. And so I just set that piece on the back. And what I wanted to show you is that my orange meandering stitching shows up quite a bit better on the back. So whereas you can kind of see it on the front, you can totally see what I'm doing here on the back. Let me see if I can get out of the way. There you go. So you can see what I'm doing is just meandering and curly cueing and going round and round. And I'm trying to aim to prevent things like that corner there and like some of the like the point on this curly cue here. I'm very much trying to avoid those things and just make it lots of round curly cues and meanders, and I'm not doing too badly for the fact that this is my second time doing this. I hope I will get better at it over time. And then the fabric itself is, let's see if I can, there you go, you can kind of see this. So the fabric itself is, I can see all the fuzzies because it's blowing out the You can see that it's kind of got like these little bubbles on it, and I ordered some purple to see if I can do the binding in purple. I just see like all the little fuzzies from my batting floating up now. But that is what the back of the quilt looks like, and so you can see I've done about a third of the quilting. Basically, what I am doing is working one bobbin at a time, and when I run out of bobbin thread, I stop and press pause for a few minutes and get up and stretch, because manhandling the quilt under the needle, it just takes a lot of arm strength and a lot of moving the quilt around and trying to be pretty smooth and even. And when I'm not, you know, that's when we get the little pointed stitches. But that is what I'm doing, and then I will put the binding on, and then it will be done. So I'm very excited about that. And part of what motivated me to do that this weekend, so it's interesting because I've had this quilt kind of ready to go. Well, okay, I finished the top right after Christmas, and it hasn't been that long, but it's been several weeks since Christmas. You know, we're probably almost at 7 or 8 weeks since Christmas, and I could have finished that long before now. And I've had, do you ever put things off because you don't know how they're going to work out, and then you do them and it's like much easier than you thought? So I have really been kind of stymied because first I had to put new feet on my sewing machine, and I didn't know how to do that, and I didn't know if I bought the right feet, and then I didn't know how to my stumbling block was I didn't know how to free motion quilt, and then I taught myself, and it didn't seem that hard, and I'm not perfect at it. I mean, I'm definitely not, I definitely have room for improvement, but it's like when I finally just sat down and did it, it's not super hard, and the only way I'm going to get better at it is if I practice, and I don't want to keep wasting fabric to practice on, so I have to settle for the fact that like my first couple quilts are going to be my first couple quilts, and they're not going to be perfect. And I don't know if you struggle with this when you start a new hobby. I mean, I've been a knitter for so long, and I've actually been a spinner for like 14 years now. And so I find it really hard to be new at something and to be like, well, I know I could finish this better if I just waited until I were a little better at this. And, you know, we all have those. We'll have those skeins of yarn or those braids of fiber that we hoard because we're like, well, I don't want to use this until I'm really good at this. But the bottom line is you have to get through your first several projects to actually be good at something. Like, you have to build on that knowledge. And so part of what pushed me over the edge, I think, is I didn't really know what I wanted to make after this quilt. I knew I wanted to make some other quilts. And I even have some fabric, but I didn't have anything specifically in mind. And so I guess maybe I was kind of like, well, I'm just going to sit and wait for this hard thing to gel, and maybe I don't want to do it, and maybe I do, and whatever. And then I had to order some supplies for quilting. I had to order, I ordered a can of basting spray, because what you do is it's kind of a sticky adhesive spray, not quite like, my husband likened it to Post-its, but not really. I think it's a little bit more like rubber cement or one of those tacky things. Anyway, you spray it on there, and then you can spread out your fabric, and you can kind of like tack it down, and it helps hold all the layers in place when you quilt. And then I also needed to buy some safety pins that were curved, because the other thing you do is you add safety pins at different points, and that will hold your quilt layers together so that when you put them through the machine, there will be as little shifting as possible. There will still be a little bit, but you just don't want your layers to get all smushy and bunchy, and you don't want to have like extra pockets of fabric. So I ordered those things, and you know, some things never change, right? I don't know if any of you are mystery bag fans, like when your yarn shop wants to give away yarn skeins, and sometimes they'll do a mystery bag, or like I see indie dyers do like potluck skeins, and you know, you just, anyway, Missouri Star had a like mystery layer cake, and it was on a pretty deep discount. And I was like, oh, sure, whatever, I'll get a mystery layer cake. It'll be fun to see what fabric I get. And of course, the fabric that I got is not really entirely my taste. And it's not, I should say this. It is high quality fabric. It is not of a style that I would normally buy. I tend to be a little bit more modern, and this is definitely more traditional. It's little floral prints and little kind of antique vintage things. And it's in colors that I just probably wouldn't pick. It's in red and white. I mean, it's not, there's nothing wrong with it. It is lovely fabric, and I'm sure to someone they would be thrilled to buy this. And I shouldn't be surprised that it's something that probably didn't sell as well, because of course, why else would it be in a mystery designation? Because they're just trying to move them at a sale price, and they put it in the bin and they pick one out of, right. So I was like, what am I going to do with this fabric? Because I bought this and it was like a $15 investment. So it really was not super expensive, and it is enough fabric to do like the entire top of a quilt. So it's not like I even have to supplement it with that much. I would have to buy some backing and some binding, but like it's enough to do a decent sized quilt, like almost a twin size, I think. And so I kind of had this, well, I don't know what I'm going to do with this fabric now. I guess I'll just hold on to it. And then I started thinking about it, and I was like, well, maybe I should just make like a practice quilt. Like, even though it's not a quilt I want on my wall or for something in particular, like maybe I should just make a practice quilt and play with it a little bit. And then I thought, maybe I could turn it into a wall quilt that I would want. And then I'm sitting there with like coordinating fabric for the backing and the binding in my shopping cart, and I'm like, this is crazy. So I guess part of the way that I got over my fear about getting into finishing this quilt is that I have some ideas on what I want to do for the next one now. And so I guess it's a little bit like my knitting, in the sense that, like, I don't know if you have this when you knit or crochet a project, where you spend a lot of time like dreaming about it and planning and picking the yarn and the pattern and whatever, and thinking about if you want to make any modifications or how you want to make it fit you better. And then you get about, I don't know, 2/3, 3/4 of the way through the knitting, and you're like, I'm kind of in the home stretch. I just have to finish the bottom of the sweater, or I just have to finish the last several rows of the shawl, and they're going to take forever because they're really long. But you kind of, I don't know about you, I kind of start daydreaming about what my next project is. Like, now that I'm kind of in the home stretch, that I'm feeling the pattern, that I'm in the flow, it's like before the finishing work that I want to pay attention to the details. So it's like just in this real kind of meditative part of the project, and I'm like, and I've completed 3/4 of it, so I'm getting really close to having it as a finished object that I can gift or wear or use. And I'm like, what's my next project going to be? And so I guess I hit that point with my quilt. Like, now I know I need to quilt it, but I've kind of conquered that fear. I know what that's going to look like, even if it's not going to look perfect, which is fine. I have to be okay with that. And now it's time to start thinking about my next project. Anyway, so that's where I'm at. That's my brain, both with my knitting and with my quilting. But it's funny because I'm used to it in knitting. Like, I already, because I'm finishing my mom's sweater and I'm going back to my sweater, and I'm thinking about the whips that I have in progress so that I can get them out of the way so I can start some new things. You know, like, my brain there is like fully conditioned to just do this back and forth. And now I have another project in mind to learn a new technique for quilting. And so I'm like, great, let's finish this one and move on to the next one. And I don't even know what I'm going to do with the quilt. I don't know if it's going to be a wall quilt. I don't know if it's going to be a bigger quilt. I don't know if I'm just going to donate it or give it away or save it as a gift for someone, or... And I'm not a huge person who makes things just for the sake of making them. It's not that I don't think... I understand people who knit for the process and don't really care about the product. And I understand people who knit because they want to knit a pattern, even if they don't think it's like quite right for them. And even if they think, oh, I'll find someone to gift it to, or I'll make some other use of it. I just, in general, I'm not so much about crafting random things that I don't know what I'm going to do with them, because I kind of feel like I want a purpose for them so that they can go somewhere and be useful. And it's not more... I don't want to say craft waste, but like, I don't want all of my things to like be in a Goodwill store that eventually are going to end in a landfill. Like, I know that's like a really broad generalization, and that might be a little too much, but I feel like I don't want to, I want to make things that are going to be useful to people. And I'm sure I can find a useful place for quilts, but I don't just want to make things just to buy things and make things. And so I'm kind of reconciling that. And I think no more mystery fabric for me. Like, I'm just going to buy for my project. And I've done pretty good about not like stocking up on random fabric, but no more mystery fabric. Okay. I'm going to stop there because now I'm just rambling like crazy. Thank you for hanging out with me today, and I hope I didn't completely scare you off if you're new here. I hope that you have a lovely week ahead. I hope that you are enjoying crafting, even if you're not thinking deep philosophical thoughts or long, rambly, winded thoughts. And I thank you for hanging out with me. I wish you a lovely week ahead, and until I see you again, I'll say happy knitting, happy spinning, happy sipping, and I'll see you next time. Bye.